The guests are running the show. Walter, are you ready to do this with me?
I'm ready to do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Welcome to the EMS Wizard Podcast. Tonight, we have some champions with us of the 2024 EMS competition. We have Morgan Langdon and Jonathan Murphy. Welcome.
Welcome,
Hello.
guys. And congratulations.
Yes, with the guests. Yes, congratulations.
Right.
Woo-woo.
So,
Thanks for having us.
Be very proud of that.
Yeah, right. So they have let the guest podcastees, I'm going to call us, loose tonight. So we're all guests on the EMS Wizard Podcast tonight. So that's our running joke. It's the Terry and John show, and the rest of us just all guests. So again, guests, welcome to our guest episode.
We're unsupervised.
Right, we're unsupervised. This is going to be messed up. Morgan, Jonathan, whoever wants to go first, tell us a little about yourself, how you got into EMS, what you do now, and then we'll go into the competition in just a few minutes. But just to let the audience know who you are, how long you've been in EMS, some of those types of things.
Jonathan Murphy, the Assistant Chief of Training for Harnett County EMS, undergraduate college. I've been in EMS since roughly 2010, so I've been doing it for about 14 years now in a variety of different pathways. I've done small rural EMS, I've done urban, and I've done in the middle, which is where we are now. I've done convalescent, I've done 911, I've done the whole thing. I got into EMS a long time ago, mainly it was supposed to be a gap year for med school, and now I'm on my 8th or 9th gap year, I think, at this point. But I love it. In hindsight, it's definitely where I'm meant to be. I definitely enjoy doing what I do. So,
now, where we start med school at? Or where were you thinking about starting med school at?
I didn't matter at the point. I was in the stage of whoever takes me. But then between work and school and MCAT thing never really happened. And that's basically all she wrote.
Hey, at least we've kept one. So we can say that we've kept you. We haven't kept many that tried that, but we've kept you. So welcome.
You got a taste of the good life, huh?
Right.
Yeah. And, not ER physicians, I just know how much they work. And I know we work a lot too, but it just never, it seemed a lot more attractive on TV than it started actually meeting a lot of with the hospitals, and nothing against them. It's definitely a respectable line of work, but I just don't, I like being out in the field and seeing people in their own element and doing that type of stuff. And that's not really frequent in the ER setting.
Morgan Langdon. I'm a district chief of operations with Harnett County EMS. I've been with them full time since 2010. I started EMS volunteering at 4 Oaks in 2007. I got into EMS because I originally was going to go into PA school. So I started out at Methodist, had a little bit too much fun there. Decided, I'll probably go to community college. Didn't want to try to get into the nursing program. So someone was like, hey, why don't you do EMS? And I was like, okay, I've always liked that. It's pretty exciting. And I was like, but I want to get a degree in it. And they were like, well, you can. And I didn't really know that you could at that time. So I went on, did that, and I fell in love with it. I've done transports. I've done 911. I've worked at fire departments doing EMS and fire. I've also worked in the hospital setting, in the ER setting. And to this day, I still love EMS. Like, I wouldn't go back to school to go to nursing school or PA school. Like, I like that freedom being out on the truck. I've worked my way up through the ranks, became a lieutenant FTO, and then 2020 became a district chief. And I love everything about EMS. I like the operations a lot more than the training, but I still do enjoy teaching and getting out there with the students and mentoring as well. So.
Okay, I take that back. We have 2 now that we've kept. So
I was about to say we have 2.
One trying to be a doctor, one trying to be a PA, and then a nurse, and then we fell into EMS. So that's good. So we're glad
you guys
we
are in
have both
great
you guys.
spots too.
Right.
Yeah, you're in some positions of succession planning and setting up your agency. So that's great.
I'm proud of myself. I've worked hard, and that's a big thing, is just staying focused, being determined, and just continuing to rise, to lead, to mentor, and staying positive about it. So
how do you handle those rough days as you're going through that climb?
I think communication, like I'm going to sit down. I'm like, Jonathan, we got to talk. I just got to sit down, and he'll say, all right, sit down. And we talk about those days. We talk about things, how far we have come in our system and how much potential we do have and things that we have planned for the future. And that's one thing about me and Jonathan. From the moment I first met him, like we had an instant connection, and I liked him. And I'm so glad he's with us. I think he's done really well at Harnett County, and I think he's done great things and has a lot of plans for the future. And I think communicating with the other district chiefs, we all have like little group texts. We all get along and we talk about stressful things. We talk about the good days, the bad days. So it all works out.
One of the things we talk about in EMS Officer 1 is from making that transition to being in a leadership role, from coming up with the employees that you have been dealing with. How did you handle that? Because you said you came and started at the bottom and worked your way up to a district chief now. So how did that work for you? How do you feel that you did with that?
I don't have any more friends anymore. I don't. But you have to draw that line. And that was one of the biggest things and as young as I was, and even my supervisors at the time, they were like, you've got to draw that line. There's a time to be a friend. There's a time to be a coworker, but then there's a time that you got to be assertive and you got to discipline, and you have to treat everybody the same. Over time, honestly and truly, yes, I have friends in EMS, but they're in leadership positions. I still do talk to those people, but honestly, I really don't hang out with them much outside of work. Because to me, when you're in a leadership position like that, you're always in that leadership position. Going down to the grocery store, going out to eat local, everybody's always looking at you. So you have to always know that eyes are watching you at all times. But that is a hard thing, I will say.
Yeah, it can become hard. Now, Jonathan, did you come to Harnett as the assistant chief of training, or how did you come up as well?
No, so when I left the previous place I worked for, I actually taught a little bit at the college at Wake Tech, where I actually worked with John for a little bit. And then I was looking to get back on the truck.
He left you hanging tonight.
He left us, right? He left us so I can say those things.
So I applied. I want to say it was 2021. Yeah, 2021. I applied that fall, got hired. Morgan was actually my supervisor for about a year. And then we expanded our training department from 1 person to 3. And when that happened, I applied to be one of those training captains. And then since then, the assistant chief of training left for a different position. And then I promoted into that position. So within about 2.5 years, I went from a field provider to the assistant chief role. So I don't have quite what Morgan has with the growing up and knowing these people as friends. I'm sure there were a handful of them that I was close with, but none of them were. It wasn't that hard to make that ascension to the top, I guess you could say, just because I don't have that kind of relationship with a lot of the coworkers outside of Morgan. And I think one of the things that led us to the competition thing, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, was we actually ran a call together. That was a pretty bad MVC, and it just ran super smooth. I think that was one of those calls that just connected the dots. So this was what I wanted to do, and that we'd be a good team. And I think that's where we got to where we are now.
So Morgan, you did the competition a couple years ago, correct?
I did. I first done it in 2016, and I got runner-up with the guy that got me into it, and then I was hooked. From there, I changed out partners a couple through the years. We got another team in the system, and the next year they were runner-up. We didn't place at all. And then our chief of training at the time was like, look, why don't we combine you two? We think y'all be a good team. And we were, me and Justin were. He's actually the other district chief on my shift as well. And we actually placed and went to state in 2018 and 2019. So that was interesting. That was fun. And then COVID hit, and we skipped for 2 years. And Justin was like, I'm retiring. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, it was a dream. It was a goal. I was going to win this thing. I just wanted to win it one time is what I've always said. And so then Jonathan wasn't there at the time, but another one of our lieutenants, really strong provider and instructor, he said, hey, Aaron was like, I'll do it with you. So that we done it in 22, and we got runner up again. And then in 23, he just had a lot going on with school and was like, look, he was trying to finish his degree up. I got to focus. I don't have the time to practice. So I had to find another partner, and along come Jonathan. And like I said, he was on our shift. I liked him from the moment he walked in the door. We just connected, and he was strong. He was super smart. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And we done it.
You've got a little fire in you. You just keep going. You're like, I just want to win it one time.
Right.
Now I got to go back.
So what kind of like training do you do to get ready for this? I know, Jonathan, you said earlier something about you just have to do it like you would run any other call, but you guys, did you do extra training for this?
Oh, yes. We set aside and pick out days that we're off together, and it's through the years, it's always someone from the training department. This past year, it was one of our training captains, Laura, and then some other people that are instructors, some of the lieutenants, and then the academy students. We just run mock scenarios, multiple scenarios, outside, inside, in a warehouse, out on the farm. Like, we're practicing doing scenarios, communicating. Sometimes they're videoed, and then we sit back and we talk about our weaknesses, our strengths, what we need to work on, and just continue to build from that. A lot of practice, a lot of sitting down, talking, going through our bags, learning where each other's stuffs are at, because we have somewhat set up different bags. But I think one thing with me and Jonathan that works is our communication, the fact that we connect well, and then he knows what I'm thinking and I know what he's thinking. And we're always 2 and 3 steps ahead. And it works. It just works.
I can definitely see that. I had the pleasure of being with Jonathan in FTEP this year, and it was a pleasure being at your table and working with you in that communication. So I can definitely see where the two of you make a really solid team.
I don't think, and I've never participated, did not want to, because I did not want to have to do all that work. So I took the easy way out. But, I don't think people, and so we sent a group from the agency that I worked for, probably been about, it was probably 2015, 16, sometime around there. And I worked with them. I don't think people realize how much you have to work and how you have to practice to be that good, because it takes some time. Because when do y'all start practicing?
This past year we had started August?
And it's not a lot. We usually one day a month we'll just sit down and go through the bags with each other, and then one day a month we'll spend a couple hours doing scenarios. Usually start that August, and as we get closer to the spring, we do practice a little bit more. But it's not a lot when it comes to the scenarios and practicing that piece. I think the bigger piece is continually taking classes to become a better provider in general. And then running the scenario, at that point, you're just practicing the scenario piece itself, not the actual medicine.
Right.
So I think the big practice point is communication. How well do you verbalize things? Because if you're a good clinician, the medicine comes easy. And when you get to the state level like that, everybody is a good clinician.
Right.
All 6 or 7 teams, whatever, all of those providers are exceptionally good providers. That's how they got there.
Right.
The little things that set you aside is really just the communication, really. So
I will
it's not.
Say, competition through the years has made me a super strong provider, for sure. Just, the classes, but just doing that, putting myself out there and seeing that stuff, and been given those stressful calls, the stressful situations that you're placed in, the multiple patients, the distractions, all that. You use it in real life, and it definitely has made me a stronger provider through the years.
Do you find yourself debriefing those heavier, harder calls a little more since you've been doing competitions, just to see where you're weaker at or stronger at, to help it mirror what you're going to do in a competition?
I would say yes. My biggest thing now is organization, is planning stressful calls. Well, we do RSI still in our county, and going back and looking through the years when I first started out as an RSI medic, things were not as organized. And now I just feel like it just flows. I have the same thing I do every time. I have a checklist. I'm a big checklist person, and I like everything organized. And I feel like through the years, that is where I have sat back and went through and reviewed those calls or what I could work on, what could have went better. And the same thing with the scenario type stuff. You sit there and you vet it and you want to do, well, next time I would do this, or next time I would place this hair, or we need to try this different.
Now, I didn't get a chance to see the competition this year. How many patients did y'all end up having?
Was it 4?
Well, I mean, if you count the driver, was there in the car 5 count the driver, so he's not really injured at all, but he technically was a patient. I mean, I think 5.
5 patients. Yeah, 2 of you guys doing 5. Communications is big, and having that communications. And I think, Morgan, you're talking about that communications, and you're on the spotlight with front of everybody. And what we look at from the audience looks like it's this big and it's just there. But when you're down there on the floor having to communicate with Jonathan, it's really way out here this big, and you're having to make that communications back and forth. So communications, I would agree 100%.
Yeah, you definitely can't get tunnel vision. You got to look at the bigger picture, and you've got to communicate with each other. Like, I'm working and I'm talking, but I'm also listening. He's talking, and I know what he's got going on.
Right.
You know, and you always know there's probably something else about to happen.
Right. Yeah, right. You're always thinking, but so think about and turn this into a leadership thing as well. Communications with leadership, always expecting something is going to happen. And as a leader, you have to be in that forefront of that to say, okay, I've got to do a good job with communicating. I got to make sure what is going to come up next and be ready to be able to handle it. It may be the 4 patients, but it may be 4 people that are having problems in your agency as your leader. I think that's good leadership things with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just in reality of it is even patient care or leadership or whatever, it's anticipating the next move, right? Anticipating what's going on. And as you get experience and just in response to clinically, but also in leadership ways, you know the response that certain things are going to get you. Like when I do a STEMI transport or have a STEMI patient, I always put pads on them because I anticipate the potential for it to go bad. I think with leadership too, when we push out new protocols, new procedures, new directives, we've got to understand that sometimes those don't get received the way that we would hope they would. And I think that part of predicting that might come and say, hey, when we do this, we think this is going to happen. And how do we prepare ourselves for that to happen? Because I think that's what happens a lot of times is people make decisions and they don't look forward to the response. And then they get caught in a compromising position because they didn't expect the response that they got.
Preparation is the key to success, is what I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might be treating a respiratory patient that could need a CPAP at one point or another. Lay the CPAP out on your workstation. Just lay it out right there. Be prepared for it.
Just like clinically, we talk about what we do when we talk about airway stuff. We tell our people you shouldn't intubate without suction, and you shouldn't intubate without a backup airway. You shouldn't intubate without all these backups. And it's not to say, hey, some people look at that, I don't plan on failing.
Right.
So, well, sure, you don't plan on it. None of us plan on it. That's not the point. We want you to be prepared for when it does happen, because eventually you will get caught. Eventually you will get in that 100%. Airway and something will be in there that you didn't expect to be in there. And how do you respond to that? And I think that's all preparation. I think that's not just in scenarios, but in leadership and real life and real clinical practice. I think all of that is to be prepared.
I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And it's how I am in personal life and at work. Everybody says I'm a war worker, but no, I just want to make sure we have what we need just in case. You'll thank me later.
Yeah.
That's like competition bags and stuff. I'm like, you saying we'll need this? And John's like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm just going to keep it right here just in case we might need it.
Right. I'm just going to put it right there.
Put it right there.
And that's how you get a work bag that weighs 80 pounds that you use 3 things out of.
We don't talk about the heavy work bag. We talk about how prepared we are.
Very prepared. Very prepared.
Sometimes
that's what I tell people that overstock their truck. I'm like, look, if you use all 6 non-breathers, just go out of service. Like, it's fine. You don't need more.
You're done for the day. You're done.
You're
just
done.
say you're done.
No.
We have some people that do that. We do have some people that do that. We do. Mm-hmm. So We've already talked about communications, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. If you, I want you to name three things. I'll give you name four things. Both of y'all can name two. If you had someone who wanted to be in the competition or who wanted to be a leader, besides communications, what are the top four things? And I'll let either one of you do. And you can combine that into leadership, or you can combine that in with the competition. Top four things that they should do.
Well, I don't give too many secrets away, but
no, don't give your secret. I don't want you to give your secrets away. Just what do they need to do?
I think transparency. I think recognizing maybe where you're not as strong at, where you're weak, and saying, hey, look, like if we get this patient, I need you to take it because I don't feel comfortable with this, or I'm strong with this topic or whatever, and understanding where each person's strengths and weaknesses are. And as a leader, it allows you to delegate tasks better. If I have somebody that works for me that I know is really good at trauma, for instance, we have a couple of people that are just phenomenal at trauma stuff. We let them teach that portion of Con Ed or that portion of stuff. And I think that what you do is in clinical practice and in real life is you allow those people to feel like they're empowered, but you also let people know, hey, these are things that I'm not good at. Right? So I think that transparency is super important in every capacity. So
I like the way you did that. Competition and leadership. I like that. Transparency. All right, Morgan, you're due number two.
I would say you got to be able to be a problem solver. And you can take that in competition world and in leadership world, whether you're solving the problems of knowing you're doing that good of an assessment, knowing your differentials, knowing what is about to come, what could come based off of like your signs or symptoms. And then just in the everyday world with leadership, I'm solving problems all the time. Trucks go down, people call out last minute, equipment failures, anything that happens. We don't have no toilet paper that day. You're somehow
That's a big problem some days.
Right.
I would say definitely problem solving and being confident in that.
Okay. All right. So we got transparent, we got problem solving. Back to Jonathan.
Oh, well, I think we covered communication, the transparency. Those are just the biggest two. Kind of putting me on the spot here to think of more.
Right. I'm putting you on the spot if you got something.
You can do communication again because that's a big one.
I think those two are the biggest. And I think with transparency, go back to that, is with leadership, if you're going to do something that makes somebody else's job more difficult, you need to explain why. And I feel like we've historically not been good at that. For instance, if we need somebody to fill out a special form in ESO for a trauma or for a code or whatever, and because they're going to say, why do I have to fill out this extra form? And we say, this data is going to allow us to do this. So it's going to, I think giving that full transparency is going to, especially when you're making somebody else's job more difficult, is going to get you more buy-in. So I think that those two, and then just in preparation, I think preparing for the next steps for the future, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, succession planning, that preparation, I think is super important going into leadership or practice.
We're definitely in a
Morgan.
why era of things.
Morgan, he said he couldn't give any more, and he just gave me 2.
He sure did.
See, he ended with the 4 for you. So see, he just gave me 2 more things. Didn't even realize that he saved you.
I mean, I had something extra.
Go ahead. Add it. No, add it. Go ahead.
I'm big on, and I think this has a lot to do with the competition, is actually something that you're judged on, is your professionalism. That's actually a category that is part of it, from your uniform to the way you present yourself, the way you communicate with your partner, but you're also communicating with the judges, the staff, the patients, the people on scene, as well as your attitude. I've judged some competitions in the past, which is actually kind of fun being on that other end. And there was people that did phenomenal jobs, their treatment, everything they done, but they just had a terrible attitude. Like they didn't even want to be there. And to me, just in the communication with their partner, they weren't confident with one another, and it showed. Like the attitude showed everywhere, and it brought down professionalism to me as well. So those 2 big things are huge, and that's really big in everything with me, is professionalism and attitude.
That's awesome.
It is a major component to your success.
It very much is. I used to tell the crews, most people don't realize if you need an IV or what medication that you needed, or if you even gave the right medication, but they know how professional you came in, the way that you talk to them and the way that you care for them. It went a long way, along with the treatment that you provided to them. But most people don't even realize that they need an IV. They need oxygen. They need those non-rebreathers. They don't realize they need those things. they look for you to be able to do that. So, well, the 2024 state paramedic competition champions, we're glad that y'all were able to join us tonight. So again, congratulations, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next year.
All right. We're going to be there. So
We'll be there.
Well,
2 years in a row.
hopefully I'll get to see this
Got
year.
a
next
title
year.
to defend.
Right. Y'all got a title to
Yes.
defend. Y'all gonna be like Stokes County. Stokes County was in there for a while on that title. So y'all got to stay Harnett County up there now.
everybody's like, Harnett County, which Harnett County? We're
Harnett? Where's Harnett County? at?
Y'all are Harnett County. There you go.
Right. Y'all are Harnett County. That's right.
I'm all for you guys having a nice streak.
I appreciate it.